Hi friends, I'm Michelle Quintero, and today we're going to be learning about the social affective strategy for class TSL 3081. So to begin, social affective strategies are used to aid English language learners in their language development, and it could be used as a method to ease anxiety of the new language and the new environment. Not only are ELL students typically trying to learn a new language, but they are also attempting to learn the content and the concepts for their appropriate level. This specific strategy forces us teachers to consider the child's relation to society all the way from their family to the global community, and how this specifically impacts their language acquisition. Social skills may be considered one of the most essential driving factors when it comes to learning a new language. Learners who have learned the social affective strategy are more likely to become successful English language learners. In what we know about speech development and basic language learning skills, we know how important one's own motivation, self-esteem, anxiety, and attitude have such a great influence and are predictors on how successful and how quickly they will learn a language. These are some key points of why social affective strategies are specifically very helpful to English language learners. So social strategies give students the opportunities to be exposed to the language and practice their knowledge. It increases the interaction with the target language, and when students who have a different native language are grouped with someone with a target language, not only do they have the ability to aid in the language development, but they also allow all students to learn and explore cultural and social norms which help the learner adapt to their new environment. So there are three main categories when it comes to social affective strategies. The first one is cooperation, the second one is asking questions, and the third one is self-talk. So today we are going to focus on specifically cooperation and cooperative learning for English language learners. So to begin, cooperation can be defined in a classroom as working together with peers to solve a problem, gather information, check learning tasks, or get feedback on oral or written performance. Specifically though, for English language learners, it's very helpful because it does promote peer support and positive peer influences. It allows the natural observation for English language learners, not only for the language exposure though, but also how to learn to solve problems and how to grasp concepts in different ways. It promotes collaboration. ELL students can benefit from these English role models, and ELL students typically thrive with the small group setting. So what cooperative learning typically looks like in an ELL classroom is that desks are typically grouped in fours so that students can either break apart into groups of two and partner up, and then they could come back together and collaborate. The goal of this small group setting is to allow for students to participate in contribution, stay on task, help one another, encourage each other, share information and concepts, problem solve, and to give and accept feedback from their peers. So while learning about this concept, some of the most interesting things that I found out were that typically for an English language learner, they might feel either anxious or they seem like they just cannot understand the teacher, like the teacher jargon of words. Sometimes their peers can explain things to them in their own little student language that makes sense to them. And not just that, since humans and especially children are typically social by nature, they're more likely to listen or accept help from a friend or a peer or someone they just want to socially interact with. Typically, when this is done and peers are able to help those ELL students, it creates a low stress environment. Research tells us that when students learn under a low stress, low anxiety environment, they're more likely to thrive and grasp these concepts a lot more organically, naturally, and without necessary frustration. So now that we understand the social affective strategy, and specifically the cooperative learning portion of it, I'm going to show you a demonstration of an activity called round robin that can be utilized to practice this specific method. Round robin and the category that is provided for the topic discussion depends all on the language efficiency of your current students. But as general guidelines, this is how it works. Present the students with a category or content area to discuss. So for this example, let's focus on weather, and imagine we are in an early childhood classroom. Students then, in their groups of four, have to go around and just name one word that has to do with weather. This is a low stress way to understand the concept of weather and even learn new vocabulary. So as an example, one student can say rain, windy, sun, wet, sunshine, and keep going. Overall, cooperative learning is something that is found very useful in classrooms, especially early childhood classrooms. There are some aspects to consider that this strategy may not work for. The thing we need to consider is the stages of language development. So let's assume a child is in the silent period. To us, we should know that if the child is in the silent period, they are in the observation period. They might be producing a few words, but in general, they're just observing. They might seem anxious. Students maybe give that specific student that is in the silent period different tasks like the recorder. So then that way they don't necessarily have to produce language, but they are able to contribute to the group in a very low stress way that they don't have to necessarily verbally contribute. Another thing is just giving them specific jobs, like maybe being the timer, it's a timed activity, the organizer, anything like that. I think it's just very important to think outside of the box for any student who might be in different levels of their language acquisition. Overall, I think that this method is very helpful in classrooms in general, and I think that it could be very helpful to English language learners because we are all social humans, and this could be a driving factor to allow students to not only immerse themselves in the language and the target language, they can immerse themselves in the culture, in the classroom, in their peers, develop friendships and social interactions, which are so necessary for a child's development.